Oh, east is east and west is west, and though on magic feet, as was sung by poet of wisdom blessed, never the twain shall meet. But here, twixt gulf and ocean strand, where nature towers a mystic veil, or lowers a mystic veil, is a wondrous fair and magic land. Here the twain do really meet. For it is her by the wise men planned, where the old does not avail, that the gulf ebbs east and the sea winds west by the Tamiami trail. It's a George E. Merrick poem on the Tamiami Trail, which brings me to this this video about Miami, Florida, and the Tamiami Trail. My mother, Doris Alexander, she had emphysema, which I now call COPD, I think, and she passed away when I was in like the fifth grade. We were living in Greensboro, North Carolina. Most of my relatives are Georgia people, but because of work and other issues, they've moved to different states in the South. But for the most part, my family is Southern people in the United States. And so when my mother passed away, 1965, shortly thereafter, my family went to Tampa, Florida, on vacation to visit my Uncle Earl and Aunt Nina. And I remember he smoked big cigars and they had a pet parrot. And when we were in Tampa, my family chose to buy me a bus ticket on the Tamiami Trail from Tampa to Miami to visit with my cousins. Now, my cousins are originally Atlanta people, just like I am. They were living in Miami at this time. They were Southern Baptist people, the Kimsey family. And my cousin, Ken Kimsey, is like the closest to my age of anybody in my family. And I tell you, the wasps are bad out here. And so I remember my sister baked me some gingerbread cookies, gingerbread men, put them in a bag for me to take on the Trailways bus. So I rode alone on the bus. I suppose I was 11 or 12 when this happened, and rode the bus alone from Tampa to Miami and go through the Everglades. I was pretty scared. I'd never been away from home like that, but made the best of it. And I got put in a seat beside this eccentric older woman, and I remember she had a huge purse that she reached down in and pulled out a Nabisco famous cookie assortment, which back in the day was a big box of cookies. Had the Oreos, Lorna Doones, and all in there. It was a assortment. I remember she brought that box out while we were on that bus trip. And then she asked me where I was from, and I told her that I was from Greensboro, North Carolina, was on vacation in Tampa. And so she told me she was from Fort Pierce, Florida. But I'm not going to say the bad words that she actually spoke in place of Fort Pierce. Her accent was such that she said 2 cuss words there, and that got me kind of laughing, tickled on that bus ride. It really helped me a lot. And so, this poem that I read by this Merritt guy, he founded a town called Coral Gables. So on this bus ride, we're getting close to Miami late at night, and the driver calls out and says, Coral Gables Station. There weren't very many people left on the bus. And I walked up to the front, and I asked him, I said, is this Miami stop? Because I didn't know anything about the relationship between Coral Gables, Florida, and Miami. And he said, yeah, Coral Gables. And so I got off at Coral Gables. I wasn't supposed to. I was supposed to get off at Miami. So I get off at Coral Gables Station. I wait a long time, late at night in the dark, sitting out there on my suitcase. And so I went up to the dispatcher to make a phone call, and he contacted my cousins, and they were in Miami waiting for me at the bus station there. So my cousin said, what are you doing in Coral Gables? And I said, well, the driver told me when I asked him, is this where I get off? He said, yeah, Coral Gables, and nodded his head. And then, so I got off here, and he said, well, you're supposed to wait until Miami, but we'll come get you. So my cousins all got in the car and headed towards Coral Gables to pick me up at the bus station. Before he got off the phone, he said, let me talk to the alcoholic. And I didn't get the joke, so I turned, took the phone away from my ear, and I said, he wants to speak to the alcoholic. And the dispatcher talked to him, and of course that was a crazy thing, but I made it to Miami and stayed with my cousins there. And these days were just before, probably the most important years in my musical development, because I would turn 13 in the summer of love, 1967. Eric Clapton and Cream would come out, along with Jimi Hendrix in 67, and so all that psychedelic music was exploding during the summer of love and during that time, and of course up to Woodstock in 69, which was the largest gathering of my people. And the Beatles broke up in 1969, and so in Georgia at my Uncle Guy's house for Christmas in Stockbridge, Georgia, my cousins from Miami were there, and we had the White Album, Beatles' White Album. And this was just before the Beatles break up, and I remember we listened to that album at my aunt and uncle's house. So these were really formative years for me. Then in 1970, and the significance with Miami was that Tom Dowd, who was the producer of the Allman Brothers, and Eric Clapton, and so many others, he worked at Criteria Studios in Miami, and in 70 this album broke. And this was probably the most important album, Layla by Derek and Dominoes. This is Eric Clapton, Bobby Whitlock, Carl Radle, Jim Gordon, and Dwayne Allman. And so this was a revelation for me of this album. The Dirt Dominoes, were doing a concert in Miami, and the Allman Brothers went to hear them on the front row. And consequently, Eric Clapton invited Duane Allman to play on the album. So Duane, there he is, in that peacock shirt, which I would see him play live in. And so this was a major album, Layla. This particular copy is old, coming apart. So, that's the Miami thing. Now, funny thing about that is that when my cousins were driving me around Miami, giving me a tour, I remember having a conversation with my cousins about Eric Clapton, Dirt Dominoes, but I don't think it was out yet. So that's a little bit of a memory glitch I've got. That's my Miami story. And it was a very formative time. I remember my cousin, he got a Yamaha classical guitar. Of course, I was wanting to get an electric. I was wanting to get this one right here. Sunburst, Fender Stratocaster with a maple fingerboard. And so my second guitar was that guitar. And it was, got it for $175. My bass player's mom loaned me the money to buy it. And that was what got me going. So 69, 70, Dirt Dominoes recording in Criteria Studios in Miami with Tom Dowd. So for years to come, I would see Tom Dowd's name on certain album covers. This is something I really grieve for young people today who are learning music, is that you don't have album covers that have on the back the names of all the players and descriptions like that. So Highway 41 revisited Miami, Florida. I thought about reading a Jim Morrison poem, but they're a little too dark. So, all right, y'all have a good day.